Hello everybody, you're listening to the Archer on 106.6 FM Wickham Sound. I'm your host Dane Cobain. This is the weekly radio show where we chat about the local arts news. We have a different guest on each week. We head over to the Rhylight Zone for a short story and or some poetry. We catch up with Twangling Jack Ford in the Oak Shed for a weekly album review, and we play local, unsigned and or independent music. This week I'm being joined by my cat Biggie, who is currently nuzzling up against the microphone and the camera that I use to record all of this stuff. So thank you very much, Biggie. Shout out to all of the people of High Wycombe from Biggie Cobain, the chubby black cat. Anyway, where are we? Okay, so this week we are going to be chatting to So Long Space Girl. We're going to listen to some of their tunes in a bit. Before we do that, I have all the general admin stuff. So we are the Archer on Wickham Sound. We are on every Wednesday at 8 PM, our new home. You can find us on Facebook. If you search for the Archer on Wickham Sound, you should be able to find us. We are repeated on Wickham Sound on Monday nights. We're on the Wickham Sound Listen Again, iTunes, Spotify, and wherever else you get your podcasts. You can also find us on Facebook. If you search for The Art Show on Wickham Sound, you should be able to find us. And you can email me here at the studio on dane.cobain@wickhamsound.org.uk. That's dane.cobain@wickhamsound.org.uk. So we're going to go ahead and crack into the show. We're going to go to the Rhylight Zone, and this week we have some flash fiction, again, courtesy of previous guest A.B. Frank.
The summer haze crawled over Platform 1 of Cross Hill Station, a minor station on the main line between Manchester and Vileshire. The platform was speckled here and there with passengers, and dandelion seeds floated by without a care. Cross Hill was named after the cemetery on the hill, laden with crucifix tombstones. Samuel was a gravedigger at the cemetery and occasionally hopped on the train heading east towards Vileshire city centre. The evening sun was the perfect temperature. Samuel closed his eyes and absorbed its nourishing rays. It wasn't often that the sun could penetrate the polluted Vileshire air. Satisfied, he looked at his watch and saw the train was due any minute. He heard it whistle in the distance. Then he noticed a grey atmosphere had imposed on the yellow hue of the evening. His hands were coated in crimson. The platform was instantly busier with passengers that had appeared impossibly. One man had a round wound between his eyes, and a woman's throat was slashed open. Each person had injuries worse than the last. He saw a bloodied body on the track itself. "Samuel," came a gentle voice from behind him. He spun around. "What's happened?" he quizzed, noting her swollen face. "You've just passed over, Samuel. These are all the other souls that passed over at Cross Hill Station." Instinctively, he knew the truth. The body on the track was his. The trail wound from the valley and up the hillside in an abrupt incline. Daylight diffused through the clouds and low-hanging mist. The cold earth, slick with precipitation, squelched under the hiker's heavy steps as he pressed on. His breath became increasingly audible, such was the stress of the climb. He noticed dark tree trunks, but could not recall when he left the open air and entered the woods. He leaned against one of the trees to fill his lungs with fresh oxygen. Now he was still, he took a moment to observe his surroundings. He couldn't see 6 feet in any direction with the persistent mist. The tree cover had reduced the daylight further, that much he could see. A droplet of sweat rolled down his forehead and dropped off the end of his nose. Using his sleeve, he mopped up the sweat and took a drink from his canteen. Unbeknownst to him, he'd lingered too long. His loud breathing, heavy footsteps, contact with a tree, and sweat landing on the ground seemed to activate the woods. A white pointed shoot, vivid despite the white mist, grew from the forest floor. He tilted his head and studied it. It shot out of the ground, and before he could react it was buried in his stomach, injecting him with toxins. His body sagged to the ground, paralysed. Roots slithered over him. They pulled him tightly into the earth and drew all the nourishment they could from his body. The white shoot burrowed through him, and the pointed end poked through the roots to face the sky. It was waiting. It was hunting. The engineer worked tirelessly with his team to complete the dig to redirect water from the Vileshire River. The channel would be fed from rising water levels thanks to the weir. The new flow would turn a water wheel to power a large mill. The project was behind schedule. The deadline for completion came and went, and all holidays were cancelled. The dig uncovered some old stoneworks laid out in a particular configuration. The team had to stop work while an archaeological investigation went ahead, the results of which were inconclusive, making the discovery even more confusing. But work was allowed to continue. The mill was only 30 feet away from where the digging was delayed again. "Stop digging!" yelled a navvy that was digging into new ground. The men nearest him gathered around. "Look," he pointed at the earth where his shovel had just been. The soil seemed to be sinking like grains of sand falling through an hourglass. A small hole opened. He stepped forwards for a closer look. The hole got wider and wider the more material that fell in. The earth stopped crumbling and he peered over the edge. He was amazed to find a shallow hole that revealed more stonework arrangements. In a flash, the navvy was pulled into the hole by some unseen force. The team of workers gasped and cautiously approached. "Don't get too close," someone said. The navvy that had fallen was halfway into the soil wall of the hole. He was being dragged by something. A shoe was peeled from his foot as the last of his body disappeared forever. The clank of tools echoed throughout the factory. Men barked banter and instructions to one another over the noisy lark of repairing machinery. I was the supervisor, tasked with identifying if the machines malfunctioned or if the manufacturer was negligent. It was the eve of the 6th day since the accident. My team worked long hours and incurred several injuries during the process of dismantling the equipment. We'd taken an unprecedented step in the Industrial Revolution to wear what protective clothing we could. Leather gloves, long sleeves and neckerchiefs pulled over our faces had been a necessary expense. We'd discovered that whatever had caused the significant wear on the machinery was harmful to our skin. We had 3 men hospitalised with nasty open sores where their skin was in contact with the machinery. We'd seen erosion on many of the nuts and bolts, which was causing all the machines to malfunction, and in the worst instance, collapse on someone. "It's way worse under here, boss," one of the workers shouted. I crossed the factory floor to take a look. A side panel had been partially lifted and the level of erosion was unlike anything I'd seen before. A steady stream of tiny mites rose out of the gap. The worker that called me over was closest. The effect on his skin was devastating. He screamed and writhed around the floor. The mites clumped together into a massive ball, always rotating. Their colour was that of oil spilt in a puddle. All of us stared at this mesmeric display, blissfully unaware our flesh was eroding, feeding them.
Big thank you to AB Frank for the Flash Fiction. You're listening to The Art Show on 106.6 FM Wickham Sound. I'm your host, Dane Cobain, and this is Faiblesse Parfaite with their new single, Crocodile.
Crocodile, mon gentil crocodile, épargne-moi les larmes sur les forages qui assèchent ton étang. Crocodile, trop mignon en exil, si seulement il restait un peu de verre sur la terre de tes parents. Sa quotidienne, son pétrole Non mais arrête, franchement Crocodile tu me fatigues là. Oh puis y a plus rien qui marche, y a plus rien du tout. Oh il fait trop chaud aussi, on crève ici. Tiens c'est quoi Romain? Crocodile, Crocodile c'est ce que tu fais? Reste, assis, couché, couche panier, Crocodile non.
That was I'm Not Yours by So Long Space Girl, and before that we had Crocodile by Fabulous Parfait. You're listening to The Archer on 106.6 FM Wickham Sound. I'm your host, Dane Cobain, and it's time for us to be joined now by this week's guest, who are So Long Space Girl. I guess the first question that to ask you guys is who's in the band and what instruments do they play? So I guess you can sort of take it in turns to introduce yourselves.
So my name's AJ. I do the vocals and guitar.
I'm Anina. I play the drums.
I'm Paul. I play the bass.
And I'm Rob. I'm also a guitarist as well.
Cool, brilliant. And how long have you guys been making music together, and sort of how did you get your start?
So the band formed around about sort of Christmas 2018 / January 2019.
Yeah.
That was back when it was just me and Nina and Paul, and then Rob joined us. Was it a year ago, Rob?
Yeah, March last year. Yeah, 22. 22.
Cool, brilliant. And you recently played a Riverside Festival, right? So how did the gig go?
It was great. Yeah, it went really well. Yeah, we were the last band on, so we were on like, was it 7:30 or something?
That's right. Yeah.
And we had lots of people walking past the tent and
Stopping by.
yeah, you couldn't get everyone in the tent, so people were standing around the outside. It was a great reception.
Yeah, it's fantastic.
Cool. And didn't you say, weren't you kind of involved in helping to promote that as well?
Not directly with the festival. I'm actually working with Glenda Hewish. She's got her own company called Bramble Verbiage. They're a local community interest company. So what we're planning to do is sort of reinvigorate the local scene, because obviously it's been on the decline, especially since COVID. So I'm going to be heavily involved in that in future endeavors. So yeah.
Cool. And you mentioned obviously COVID. How did that affect you guys as a band, and how did you get through it?
I'd say it actually, in a way, it was a blessing in disguise, because we really knuckled down on the songs for our first album, Stranded. It afforded us that kind of space to just put our heads together and really get to work, you know.
Yeah, we planned ahead. So we got in contact with John Mitchell, who and we were basically saying, like, we're probably going to come out of, the lockdown restrictions are going to be easing soon. So we kind of planned ahead for that. And luckily, because of COVID, he didn't really have that much going on. Yeah. I think otherwise he probably would have been fully booked, but he said, yeah, I'll as soon as restrictions are lifted, let's go do some recording. So that actually was what pushed us to say, actually, let's get some stuff professionally recorded and get it out there. It did impede us on the gig front, admittedly, and we're probably still suffering from that, as most bands are. But in terms of getting our stuff out there, yeah, it actually gave us the push we needed. Yeah.
Cool. And what does the recording process look like to you guys? And has it changed since you recorded that first album?
Okay, so we started doing our own demos, just using our own equipment. We have a Tascam that we took into the studio, and we would record various parts. And then once we were sort of ready to do it professionally, we got in contact with so as I said before, we got in contact with John Mitchell, who he does I think he currently does Architect, or he at very least used to. He's done Enter Shikari, Yumi at 6, all those kind of bands. I heard about him through a friend, and he's done a lot of bands that I really quite like as well. Like Tigress, and I'm struggling to name any at the moment. But yeah, the point being that we kind of so we drive down to his studio in Reading, and the first time we did it was a little bit uneconomical. We drove down every day. It went fairly smoothly. We set up the drum kit, we record all the drum parts, we play it all as a band, and then once the drums are done, we sort of retrack guitars, bass, then we set up the vocals and do those. It's a really smooth process, and we get 5 songs done in about 6 or 7 days. And then when we did the second album, it was actually Rob's idea to say, we're just going to stay down in Reading for like the time that we're there, which actually was really good, because
it became a family unit.
Yeah, and we had to live together, and that was good. That was quite fun, actually. But we also weren't doing that drive every day.
Well, I mean, because when you're recording, it's a long day, really long day, and having to drive home after it's exhausting. So it took the stress out of it for the most part. Just being down there, really.
Yeah, we could relax afterwards. We could go and have a drink and all that sort of thing.
Not doing 10-12 hour days when you include the drive, which was nice.
Cool, awesome. And do you think that did that affect the end result? Like, can you hear that there was less stress going into recording it?
Well, the second time round, like we said, we actually booked an Airbnb, which meant we could get a decent night's sleep.
I wouldn't say it necessarily affected the sound, but what I would say is that when we recorded the first album, I guess we weren't kind of used to each other in terms of like John wasn't really used to us. So when we did the second album, for example, like for my vocals, for example, I'm quite I have a lot of vib in my voice. I have a lot of I can be quite consonanty without meaning to, and so it's just adapting the different kinds of microphone. And I think you can hear on the second album it's a lot more crisp because the right tools for the right job.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think the sound definitely improved just from a technical standpoint, just because we're used to each other and we've got that rapport now.
And then you get John to up at midnight with bottles of wine and anecdotes. It's great.
Cool. And what does the songwriting process look like? So who's in charge of songwriting, if anyone?
That'd be AJ.
Yeah, most of the songs are songs that I the songs that we've released so far. The majority of them were sort of written, some of them back as early as about 2015. So it's been a fair few years they've been kicking around. There are some new ones in there that are a bit more recent, but yeah, and actually a couple of them, like Peaches and Cream, dates back to 2009, I think. So it's yeah, I'd say I'm the one that writes the songs, but a lot of them are sort of dug up. We've exhumed them from their crypts, and
yeah, I think they take on a life of their own. Like once the rest of the band get their hands around
Yeah, I mean
them.
a lot of them. Yeah, they're just rough demos that AJ's been working with for years and years and stuff like that. And obviously he'll come to practice. Like for example, today we're doing a practice whilst we're speaking to you, and he's already like again said like I've got another song. Let's give it a go and let's. And then we're all sort of putting our pieces on it. Paul's doing his bass work, and I'm thinking of some guitar parts to put over the top of it as well, and Nina's bashing away and working something out for it as well. So we're all kind of contributing to that. The AJ's probably been a bit modest. He's the guy with the ideas mostly, and we'll all chip in and say, hey, we've got a little riff here and there or something like that. But AJ's got the he has the framework for the song in his head and goes, yeah, I know what I've got a good vocal line going on here that I want to kind of work out, and and it kind of works from there really.
And then we throw the paint on.
Yeah.
Yeah. Cool. And what are some of the topics that you write about?
Quite bleak topics really, but with a hint of optimism. Most of my songs are very personal to me, and they're about my struggles with mental illness, and they're just kind of how I cope with that. So yeah, every song I write is at least to some extent deeply personal and meaningful to me. And these guys have been great, because I know not every some people I think would look at some of my lyrics and go, I don't get that, what the hell is that?
It makes for a cool juxtaposition though, because a lot of the actual music itself, a lot of it sounds very upbeat and very there's a lot of stuff in major keys as well, so it's like very quite upbeat and stuff you can actually jump up and dance to. Tracks like Peaches and Cream and Turn It Off and Here's to Romance. There's some really cool tracks that will get people moving, but the lyrics are a little bit deeper than just...
like the lyrics could exist, but if you just want to listen to it at home and relate to the lyrics.
Yeah. Cool. And how would you guys define your sound?
That is...
we actually said this last night when we were talking. We were like, what genre are we, guys?
Alternative rock.
We're sort of like, because we got punk and pop punk in there, but also some sort of alternative stuff. There's influences. I guess it's just the sum of parts of all our different influences.
Yeah, I think it's just meshing together of all our personal sort of styles, really.
There's a bit of hard rock influence.
There is.
Yeah, there is.
It's just a bit of grunge, post-grunge.
Yeah, it's just so difficult to kind of say, really. I mean, we're not angling to be a band in a specific genre, really. We're just writing tracks. If we like them, then cool, whatever.
So I guess the answer is it depends what song you hear.
I guess, yeah. I think there's a little bit for everyone. If people like punk or alternative rock or grunge or even just more sort of poppy punk stuff, there's kind of bit of everything for everyone on the albums.
A band is like a box of chocolates. You never know what you're going to get.
Yeah, well, it's funny. It is I have the same thing with my book. Sometimes that I'll write a story, and I'm looking at it and I'm like, is this horror? Is it a thriller? Is it fantasy? What is it? And you have to kind of come up with a genre afterwards to sort of market it, I suppose. And I was going to ask you how you expect your sound to develop in the future as well. But I guess it's more of the same. So more of your influences and more of a bit of everything.
Yeah, I suppose just what comes really.
We're trying to become more cohesive as we go along. So like if we do decide to record another album, we'll try and what's the word, kind of just narrow it down.
Like shortlist.
You know, there's
Try
quite
and add some uniformity.
there's quite a range of influences, and we're kind of converging on a sound, we hope, that's like specifically ours.
I definitely think the second album has sort of done that in a way.
Yeah, because there is a transition, isn't there?
We kind of became aware that the second album sounds very different to the first album. I think going forward, we're going to try and make sure that anything comes up for a potential third album will have more in common with the second album.
Yeah, I mean, it's cool to still do some throwbacks, because I always look at the second album, because the first album's got, I think, quite major pop punky sort of influences on, and some of the tracks on there, and then the second album still has a couple of those tracks, like Reasons and Pull the Trigger, still kind of almost feel like you could put them on the first album.
Yeah.
But then the second album kind of bridges that gap, because there are other tracks which, you know, you get like a sort of Spineless, which is more sort of like post grungy, I guess, in a lot of ways, you know, and then, you know, and like I said, those other ones earlier, like Peach and Cream and Turn It Off, which are more sort of hard rocky alternative rock kind of thing. So it's kind of like it's a natural progression, I guess. And I don't know, until we get the material down for the third album completely and decide where we want to go with it, we don't really know.
You're listening to The Archer on 106.6 FM Wickham Sound. I'm your host, Dane Cobain. I'm here in conversation with So Long Space Girl, and this is So Long Space Girl with Voyager 17. That was Voyager 17 by So Long Space Girl. You're listening to The Archer on 106.6 FM Wickham Sound. I'm your host, Dane Cobain, and it's time for us to be rejoined in conversation by So Long Space Girl. I've got to ask you guys, where does the name come from?
So it's a Simpsons reference. and it's kind of an inverted one. It's from this little gag they do. It's like a 10-second gag where they're flashing back to when they held a fake ticker tape parade to hand out flyers and avoid littering laws. So Lisa's got like a bucket on her head, like pretending to be an astronaut, and she's being dragged through the streets and everyone's waving. And Police Chief Wiggum just wipes a tear from his eye and he goes, "Welcome back, Space Girl." And I found that so funny. I was like, that's got to be, that, you know, we got to use that. So it's kind of an inversion of that. People have told me, is it a Cowboy Bebop reference? You know, So Long Space Cowboy.
That's
it's
what
not.
When I went to join the band, that's genuinely what I thought when I saw the advert, because I'm a huge Bebop fan. So I thought that to myself. There
is actually a band called So Long Space Cowboy, and it makes me really angry because it's CU Space Cowboy. It's a it's a misquote.
It is CU Space Cowboy, but even I thought that as well. I thought it was some sort of Bebop reference as well.
It's a great anime, though.
Oh yeah.
Cool. So I want to chat a little bit about live shows. So again, you've just come off the back of playing that festival. What shows have you got coming up?
Anina is our gal to talk about.
We have one coming up for Club K. It's
8th of September.
8th of September at the Gladiator Club on Iffley Road in Oxford. Outside of that, we haven't got anything booked yet, but as I say, I'm going to be working with Glenda, so there's going to be plenty more shows to come. It's just finding a venue really and sort of a date to put it on.
Yeah, cool. And I wanted to ask you specifically, what are some of your favorite venues to play?
I always do enjoy playing the Bullingdon. I think we always get a really good crowd there. There are some of the smaller clubs that, like, we haven't played as this band, but like I wouldn't mind doing the Jericho Tavern at some point.
I actually quite enjoyed Fat Lil's in Whitney as well.
Fat Lil's in Whitney is always a good shout. Like that's always a good night. Trying to think, is there anywhere else?
We had a pretty good gig at the Port Mahon.
Yeah, the Port Mahon.
Yeah, Gappy Tooth. That was a good one.
And then there's the Dragonfly in Pontypool. We played there.
Yeah, we went down to South Wales. Well, I actually live in South Wales, but these guys came up to South Wales to play a gig down there. Yeah, there's some really good venues, and like I say, it's a real shame that like a lot of them are starting to close down. So hopefully it makes a comeback.
Yeah, I'll see it. I'll see it does.
And what makes a live show like a success for you?
The biggest factor for me, beyond things like technical, minimal technical issues and things like that, it's the audience. Not even necessarily the size of the audience, but the enthusiasm. You know what I mean? For me, the best thing in the world is when the audience is getting into it and
they're participating.
Yeah, they're participating, they're moving. Yeah. That to me, even if you're playing to 5 people, if those 5 people are really going for it, you can make it feel like 30 if with the right kind of attitude and the right kind of participation.
Absolutely.
Cool. So a few more questions. Some of these are a little bit random. I guess you could all answer this separately. So, but if you could tour with any band, who would you pick and why?
Good question.
Oh wow, that is a really good
tour with any band.
Oh, I'd so tour with Metric. I love Metric.
It's hard picking, because if you want to tour with someone who kind of sounds similar to you in genre, and a lot of the bands that I'm really into at the moment aren't necessarily that similar to us. I'm not sure. Well, like, what do you say, Rob?
Me? Oh God, now we're on the spot. I mean, I think we'd probably go down really well. I mean, if we were on a tour with bands that are similar to us, I'd say like obviously those kind of like sort of punk legends like people like Green Day and Blink probably would work really well with us. And I mean, but even still, like, I'd love to do stuff like with guys like Against Me and stuff like that, because they're a really cool punk band as well. And that's sort of the punky side. But as I said, we've got a bit of a mix. Love to tour with Placebo myself, because they're one of my absolute favorites as well. So yeah, I guess so.
Cool. Any band that wants us to tour with them, we're not going to say no.
Yeah, that's true.
I knew you'd say that.
Yeah. We're
Cool. I mean, it's a bit more difficult than just reeling off a list of bands that I like, because as previously mentioned, they've got to be, similar.
Oh, we've all got different influences, and we're not going to start reading out like death metal bands, even though
Slayer.
A good lineup will be bands that have something in common with us musically. So, like Rob said, Placebo, which isn't necessarily something I'd listen to at home. But I don't think the kind of bands I listen to outside of this, I don't think it'd be appropriate. So, kind of like extreme death metal is not going to happen.
Well, how do you guys like bridge the gap as well? Again, you've all got your different musical influences. So how do you find that common ground?
We got the mutual, just enjoyment of jamming together and playing together on stage.
I think it's just sort of been in the environment of the studio and just the creative process, really.
And also because I try not to draw direct influence from any particular band, as long as these guys like my songs, I think that's the most important thing.
That's the thing. I think we're all very broad in our taste. I mean, just because the main cut, like Paul's saying there, his main bread and butter is like extreme death metal stuff. I mean, I'm a huge prog fan, and I love things like Opeth and Tool and stuff like that. But I mean, obviously, just because you like or listen to mostly genres of that kind, I'd love to play in a Devin Townsend-esque band, but it doesn't matter. At the end of the day, I like the songs that we're playing at the same time. I've still got various other. We're not just narrow-minded in terms of musicians. We're all very, very broad in our influences, and you'll find pretty much any genre. There's even pop and synthwave and everything in terms of what we like.
I think it's just a general appreciation for music, really.
And it could mean that our songs change slightly going forward, but it whatever. I mean, it's just, but at the moment, the kind of stuff we've been playing, we like it. It's
We're now
fun to
called
play.
No, screw it. I want to tour with Napalm Death.
You want to go? Yeah.
Cool. And you guys have got some music videos out, right? So who do you work with on your music videos?
So it depends. So my partner has her own company it's a small company called Venus Mars Films. She does a lot of the directing for our music videos. We work with one of Paul's friends called James Whip. He's been really good. He'll turn up. He'll hold the camera for us. But like the Peaches and Cream video, we literally just rocked up and with a set of lights and a phone and just filmed it.
Yeah.
And then Georgina was kind enough to edit it for us to make it look really good.
Here's to Romance was costly.
Here's to Romance we put a bit more planning into, and we hired we have had a couple of things. Like we seem to hire almost a different camera person for every video, but we work with who we can at this stage, because we're not like a big budget band. We don't earn any money from what we do, so but at the same time we don't expect people to work for free, so we got to pay the camera people and the venues and stuff like that. So we just do what we can in terms of music videos. It's all very DIY, very and like most of the planning we do ourselves.
Cool. Awesome. And the last question, it's kind of 2 in 1. So what have you guys got planned next, and where can people follow you to stay up to date?
Okay, well, the second one is easiest to answer, I suppose. We're on Facebook, we're on Instagram,
Spotify.
We're on Spotify, if that's your thing. We're also on Bandcamp. I think we're on just about every musical platform.
We're on
YouTube.
iTunes.
Yeah, we got a YouTube channel.
iTunes, YouTube. You can find us anywhere.
Google.
We even have a Twitter account, but for how much longer? I suppose it's not Twitter anymore.
There's an X account.
I refuse to acknowledge. I refuse to acknowledge that.
Well, I guess the good thing with your name as well is that you are very Googleable. It's quite a unique name, so they should hopefully only find you.
Yeah, if you do Google "So Long Space Girl," we will come up straight away. Yeah. Yeah, except if you Google X, that doesn't always work that way either. But
so what's the plan next? Do you mean immediately, like what we got going on for the rest of the day? I mean, because we're just going to go back into the practice room and bash out the rest of our set for this gig on the 8th.
Yeah, I mean, we're just practicing up for the gig on the 8th, and then
Rob's going to go home and rest up, because we've not mentioned, but he has a leg injury, and it's really serious, and he doesn't get to go out very much.
No.
But he's been an absolute soldier, and he's still coming to practice.
Yeah,
Wow.
he's been like
long term. I guess just write more songs and
Looking for gigs, really, and just
look for
kind of.
gigs and maybe make another album.
who knows? Like that's definitely a possibility.
We're not trying to force anything at the moment.
Yeah.
We're just enjoying what we have at the moment, and and trying to get those gigs going. I think that's the most important thing, really, is just playing live. That's what we all want to do.
It's what we've been lacking, like because of COVID. Like I say, with our recording has done really well from off the back of COVID, but our gigging has suffered because there weren't gigs for like a couple of years, and now everyone wants one, and it's really hard to get booked. So that's going to be our main focus at the moment, is just trying to play a bit more, because every time we do, we seem to go down quite well. So, and we have a great time.
Yeah.
Big thank you to So Long Space Girl for joining me. You're listening to The Archer on 106.6 FM Wickham Sound. I'm your host, Dane Cobain, and this is So Long Space Girl with Gifted Kids.
If this is a nightmare, then wake me, 'cause I'm scared. I want it to be there. I would scream, but I can't. I am the mayor of the ghost town that I have rebuilt. I was a fool when I thought that this castle that I built is now a prison, and I've become the one that's trapped inside. We tried to make our way, we just got left behind. You tried to make my day, I said at least you tried. I had to let you go instead of wondering. I ruined this just like I ruin everything. You don't have to go down with this ship that I'm on. So get to the lifeboats and cast off while you can. We are the captains of our own journeys over the edge. We are the masters of our passion as it falls off a cliff. These are the years where we're supposed to make something of ourselves, but it's no good, we've been running to the ground. We tried to make our way, we just got left behind. You tried to make my day, I said at least you tried. I had to let you go instead of wondering. I ruined this just like I ruin everything. Too high? Is it way too low? Does it even matter at all? We tried to make our way, we just got left behind. You tried to make my day, I said at least you tried. I had to let you go instead of wondering. I ruined this just like I ruin everything. We tried to make our way, we just got left behind. You tried to make my day, I said at least you tried. I have to let you go instead of wondering. I ruined this just like I ruin everything. We tried to make our way, we just got left behind. You tried to make my day, I said at least you tried. I had to let you go instead of wondering.
not gonna take the blame. I'm leaving everything behind. I'm not coming back this time. I can't take this anymore. No more waiting. What were we ever fighting for? Now we're faded.
That was Fading by Humans Can't Reboot, and before that we had Gifted Kids by So Long Space Girl. You're listening to The Archer on 106.6 FM Wickham Sound. I'm your host Dane Cobain, and it's time for us to head over to the Ilkshed now to catch up with Twangling Jack Ford for this week's album review.
Nick Drake, Pink Moon. This CD was found in a vintage sale in the Front Room Cafe in Castle Street, High Wycombe. Nick Drake was never really on my radar, though he was signed to Island Records. In the early 70s, Island had a very high success rate, and they put considerable effort into producing 2 Nick Drake albums. They gave him producers who arranged the songs with string parts, but I didn't know about Nick Drake, and if I didn't, then not many others would. Pink Moon is the 3rd and final album. He made it by himself exactly how he wanted it, and it is very short. I think it's about 28 minutes. I am sure I must have heard him. He must have been played on the specialist radio shows, Late Night BBC or Radio London Sunday afternoon, but it was not my kind of thing anyway. A bit too Cat Stevens or even James Taylor for my heavy rock taste. Not only was it the era of Sabbath, Purple and Zeppelin, but it was also the era of the singer-songwriters, singing for schoolgirls in poster-decorated pink fluffy bedrooms, and patchouli-reeking Afghan-coated hippie chicks in draped and cushioned bedsit pads. But his reputation has grown massively since his death, and when I started to hear him again, though I did not recognise the songs, I definitely remembered his distinctive, languorous voice and the guitar. The lyrics poetically trawl the lexicon of depression and alienation. The complex fingerpicking that encompasses notes well beyond the simple triad gives the playing a captivating complexity. The relentless thumb picks on the bass string drives the whole thing along with much more force than you would expect from a solo acoustic. His silky smooth singing voice seems to pull elaborate melodies from thin air, often over just one chord. I will never be a fan, but this is a good listen as an alternative to just about anything else I might be playing at any time. Pink Moon, Nick Drake.
Big thank you to Twangling Jack Ford for this week's album review. Thank you to So Long Space Girl for being this week's guest. Thank you to AB Frank for his entry into the Rhylight Zone, and to everyone whose music I've shared. As always, you can find us on Facebook. If you search for The Art Show on Wickham Sound, you should be able to find us. We're repeated on Wickham Sound on Monday nights. We're on the Wickham Sound Listen Again on iTunes, Spotify, and wherever else you get your podcasts. Please do leave us a review on your podcast platform of choice. It all helps. You can also email me here at the studio on dane.cobain@wickhamsound.org.uk. That's dane.cobain@wickhamsound.org.uk. So I'm going to leave you with one last tune, and this is Luna Barge with Adventure. I'll see you next week.
2, 3, 4. We're going on an adventure. This land is ours to roam. Open your eyes and get ready. We're gonna make this world our home. So grab some snacks and jump in the car when the sun begins to yawn. All we need is just you and me, and a road pointing for the door. This is our adventure, take chances while we can, and I know no better plan. This is our adventure, gonna write it on the page, and I'll meet you on the stage. We're climbing high on the hills, meeting monsters on the way. So keep your eyes on the road, this could be our lucky day. Catching stars on our fingertips, where the darkness swallows our view. We can fall from time to time, but we'll know just what to do. This is our adventure, take chances while we can, and I know no better plan. This is our adventure, gonna write it on the page, and I'll meet you on the stage. Running through the trees, and we're scraping up our knees. We've been chased by dinosaurs while the rainstorm pours. Picked each other up when we've fallen down, and then we laugh until we cry. We keep going, we'll never give up. We're gonna soar into the sky. This is our adventure, let's run away together. Let's make it last forever. This is our adventure, we're gonna see the sights. It's gonna last the rest of our lives. This is our adventure, take chances while we can, and I know no better plan. This is our adventure, gonna write it on the page, and I'll meet you on the stage. Ooh, oh yeah, I'll meet you on the stage. You on the stage. Yeah. Ooh, oh yeah. I'll meet you on the stage. Ooh, I'll meet you on the stage.